All right, guys. I'm not sure if this is recording. I'm new at doing video streams myself, and as well, I'm not a techie, and I'm doing this by myself. Um, I'm trying to share the screen with you, and as I do, I'm not sure if you see me or not, or the screen, but well, how about that? Well, if you're looking at me and I'm wearing a beanie, it's because I'm at home with the flu. I know, exciting stuff. I didn't want to reschedule this any more times than we had already rescheduled it over the holidays. I'll see if we can edit this to put the slides in because uh, I don't want to stay on this. Anyways, you can send comments through the Facebook group, and I'll just get right into this. And go from here. So the point of this webinar is to talk about funding, specifically funding for the purposes of doing it yourself. And there's really three ways that you can fund yourself. And that is using credit, which, as you know, I talk about a lot. And credit specifically for the purpose of standing on the fence and using business and personal credit. We'll get into that. And there's a huge distinction between the two, and there's a huge misunderstanding between the two. The second being seller financing. And of course, that is, again, a creative way to use other people's assets in order to be able to get funded. And then, of course, the third way, which is creative financing. So moving right along and moving into that, we do these webinars, just so you know, on a really short snapshot basis to give you just a big shot in the arm and a big level of confidence and also information, really specifically so that you can apply and put it into use here and now. So that being said, I want to emphasize the point of not being a one-trick pony. So many of you guys out there doing deals are looking at them from the perspective of, okay, well, I have this property and it only does this, and I have this parameter, and you're restricted. And you really can't do a whole lot with it because maybe it doesn't qualify for financing. So a really famous nationwide REI trainer. You can look him up. I highly recommend him if you're looking for a coach. Brian Gibbons. I've done a bunch of interviews with him and whatnot, and he basically talks about not being a one-trick pony. And what that means is being flexible and being able to, if you only have a hammer, then you're going to look at every problem as a nail. So not to over metaphorize things. You really want to be flexible with respect to being able to do different types of deals. The other problem that we see is, of course, the opposite extreme of this. And we see a lot of you guys on these groups, and you're going after every BS offer out there, is the shiny object syndrome, where you're jumping from cart to cart to cart. That is a big problem. And if you saw these slides, it would be a lot more relevant and relative. This idea of paralysis by analysis and getting stuck. And of course, a lot of people will get stuck in as much as they literally don't know what to do next, because their mind is going a mile a minute, and they have so many different ideas and strategies and whatnot within them. The first strategy we want to talk about, and what we want to talk about doing here, is leverage. And of course, leverage means that if you're at work and you get paid $20 an hour, whatever, $40 an hour, 100, That's it. There's no leverage there. You have nothing going to work for you, and you have no assets or resources to tap. So, realistically, if you are in that position of uh, being able to being able to tap into other resources, of course, uh, this this is the direction you want to go in. And what we're talking about is using other people's money. So a lot of you guys can't qualify for financing, and because you can't qualify for financing, um, we are basically in a position where we're putting it out there to you of be your own lender. There's rules and regulations that you have to follow, of course, and there's a they're not overly burdensome, but there are some out there. And realistically, if you follow these rules and regulations, you can you can obtain financing from other people. And the caveat here and the distinction is people that know you, like you, and trust you, and vice versa. I highly recommend, and I'll throw out this link, yourprivatemortgage.com. It's a free real estate website where you can put together your deals, and you can lay them out in a format that gets the tables turned and gets the investor chasing you, which of course is the big thing that you want to do. Um, so yeah. Um, Other people's money and raising money in this way. And of course, if you saw this screen, you'd see that people are getting 1% in a CD, which is terrible. Of course, the opposite side is high risk. So you can offer healthy returns, 6 to 10%, which is typical, and it's secured by the real estate. This is a very, very powerful strategy. Other people's property. Now, this is pretty interesting. What a lot of people think of, and if you saw this slide, you'd be looking at Airbnb. A lot of people think that you need to own a property to rent it out. Not necessarily true in this new economy. You can, uh, and this is a real. I have friends that do this. They make great money, and you need no credit, you need no money to do this. They take out properties and they turn them into Airbnbs. These aren't even their properties, so they're subleasing them. I've got a great friend. He's in Coronado, which is an island out off of San Diego in my market, and he's making 300 to 600 depending on the season, because of course San Diego is a vacation destination, so it's seasonal. But depending on the season, he's making 300 to 600 a night by renting out a property and turning it into an Airbnb. Again, you got to check with your regulations with respect to the city, and of course look at the lease to make sure that this doesn't prevent that. uh, Other people's time, in terms of leveraging resources. Get people out there bird dogging you for you. Get people out there looking for deals for you. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do a deal, specifically wholesale, where you can do a deal, and you're simply assigning a contract. We'll talk about that and get into that. But again, you need no money, no lender in order to do that. You're simply assigning a contract to someone else. Make sure that you're following disclosures for federal, state, and local regulation. We want to make sure that we're very clear on that, and that we make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations to the degree that keeps your deal in compliance. And of course, this is what people talk about when they talk about due diligence. So, for instance, if a rental agreement says that you can't put it on an Airbnb, and you're putting it on an Airbnb, you're in violation of the agreement. Of course, that just goes without saying. So, credit is really important. I can't underscore this enough, and I can't talk about the importance of credit any more so than the metaphor that we deal with when we deal with a lot of people, where we hear them say, "Well, I have bad credit." Well, if you had a broken leg or a broken arm, you'd fix that, wouldn't you? I mean, clearly, yes, I get it. You can't use your leg today. You're not going to be out doing wind sprints on it. You can't go to the gym and do some curls with your arm, but you would fix it for future use. And this is a big thing. We're going to do a webinar on, specifically on what you can do if you A, have bad credit, or B, have no credit. There's ways to, and credit is such a gift if you're in the US. Other than Canada, I know no other system that you can literally, as an 18-year-old, or someone that has no track record, have the ability to access capital. So this should be something, and we did another webinar where it was called always be building, cleaning, and protecting your credit, ABC. Always be building your credit. This is something you should be, you would check your bank account every month. Why wouldn't you check your credit report? Credit monitoring is fantastically important, and this cannot be underscored at all. I'm a big proponent of Privacy Guard. Every month I look at my credit, and I monitor my parents. It doesn't take me that much time. I pull their report on the same day that I do mine. So, it takes me a few extra minutes. Identity theft and fraud is a huge problem right now, and probably will be one of the biggest problems over the next 10 years till they figure out how to fix it. But through looking at your credit once a month and doing the tweaks, you could access $250,000. We do this for clients all the time. And there's ways that you can, you can go from a 500 to a 700 score. Yes, it takes time. If you have bad credit, those items need to get removed. And it takes a lot less time if you don't have any credit, because you can do trade lines and simply boost your credit. One thing I want to talk about is personal versus business credit. Now, one of the big things that people don't understand, and this is a huge problem right now, are these guys running around saying, you can get business credit without a personal guarantee. I'm going to say it, bullshit. And I know you're not supposed to swear on these things, but I'll say it again just to emphasize it, bullshit. Someone I know talks about the burden of proof. I don't sell no personal guarantee business credit offerings. So the burden of proof isn't on me. Invariably, it's on all these companies selling this garbage. I have yet, and I've put this out there as a challenge, for one of them to produce actual evidence, tangible evidence that proves that this is a real thing, it really exists, and that people can actually obtain quote unquote true business credit without a personal guarantee. Now, let me be clear about something. I do have, and I do believe in business credit. It has all been endorsed, and it has all, in this particular portion of this webinar is what most people are watching and have tuned in for. Business credit, I do have, with one bank alone, Chase, and I show the cards to prove it. I have $100,000 of business credit. I use my personal credit in order to obtain it. I don't have a problem doing this because I'm not planning on defaulting. My personal credit is excellent, as I challenge yours to be, or anyone else who cares. And if you're watching this, you obviously care enough to care. But you do it, and it's one credit inquiry, and these are items that don't remain on your personal credit, so they go on your business credit only, other than the one, of course, inquiry. And you can simply tap this money and max it out. And this is a big problem with these funding companies. They do it the other way. Is they tell you to get a bunch of personal credit cards, and then of course what happens is you max them out, and the personal credit cards invariably are destroy your credit. And with that personal credit card, they're done, and we see people that are stuck all the time. There's definitely a safer, smarter, better way, and this is it. You use your personal credit to get business credit that doesn't appear on your personal credit. These are 0% APR. You can do a lot with that. You typically have 12 months. So if it's a flip or something, and then rinse, wash, repeat. You can do it over and over again. And this is huge. You have to do this correctly, and there's a process to doing it correctly, of course. And if you saw the slide, you would see all the credit cards that I've obtained, and I teach people how to do it. You don't need me per se, or my company to do any of this. Nor do you need a mechanic to change your oil or a CPA to do your taxes, but most people opt to do so. So if your score's not there, moving right along to the next slide, because I think you guys aren't seeing the slides. I'm having to tell you what you're seeing, which is kind of interesting. The credit booster. We have trade lines. We can add positive credit history onto your credit report, which will boost your score 100 points, and up to, and you can qualify for funding that way. This is there's trade line brokers out there that sell these trade lines for about $1,000. We offer them for free for our funding clients, just because it needs to be done correctly. And again, you don't need me or a trade line broker. You can do these yourself. Again, there's a process and right way to do it. Make sure you're doing it the right way, and that's about it. You can get a credit partner. I already mentioned credit repair, of course. Next slide is getting a credit partner. This is extremely important to do, and if you have a credit partner, it's just another way. Let's say you have a wife or your parents don't use their credit, such as mine, and someone that trusts you. You can and be a steward of them their credit. Don't if you're out there and you're giving them 40 inquiries and you're doing it like a rookie and an amateur, you're not doing it correctly. But there's a way to do all this stuff with minimum inquiries and minimum effect to their credit. I will add, if you are doing the business credit and the business trade lines, and going that direction, and there's two ways to do it. There's cash loans where the funds are deposited directly in your account. And of course, there's the credit card route. If you're going the credit card route, Capital One will report the credit card to their personal credit. So credit partner is important. This slide, unfortunately, I wish you could see it. It's really important. It has the 8 steps to build business credit. And I'm not saying build business credit in the sense that these companies that want to charge you $450 to learn how to do this stuff. But you can watch it, it's all over YouTube how to this. You definitely do not need to pay for. There's 8 steps. Basically what it is you got to make, if you're going to have 6 credit cards, for instance, from Chase or from B of A or Wells Fargo, whatever, you got to have 6 LLCs. They need to be registered, meaning they're in yellow pages. They need to have a phone number. I use callfire.com. GoDaddy for a URL. You need a simple web page. Bank of America, by the way, will actually look you up in terms of your web page. And I am guessing most of them will do it in the future. List yourself 411, super pages, yellow pages, Google listing, and then of course it should and it needs to be a corp or an LLC. I added Dun & Bradstreet. Don't pay them or give them any money. It's a ripoff. There's no value in it. When I talk about building business credit, all I'm talking about is these 8 steps to make the business a real company. Seller financing. I actually have a YouTube channel if you want to watch videos on it. I'm particularly fond and proud of a series I did called Interviews with Creative Finance Gurus or Experts. I can't remember. And I wrote a book. It's on Amazon. You can look me up, Mark Stein, Seller Financing and Real Estate Notes in the Dodd-Frank era. It's a bestseller on Amazon. There's only 2 chapters that I would read for your guys' level and what you guys are going for. I can add all the links that I've referenced on here. In any event, seller financing. seller financing can be 100% financing, and seller financing is the third way that you can go fund yourself. Seller financing, and we'll do a webinar in the near future with who I consider the godfather of seller financing, and he basically talks about how his pen is his, is basically his tool that he writes the contract. And his contract, I have one of these contracts. It's if you send it in, people will say they have no idea, they've never seen one like this before, and it stands out. And of course, that's your goal, is to stand out, of course. The seller is the bank when you do seller financing. If you want to see more about seller financing, you watch the videos on my YouTube channel. It's Seller Finance Consultants. That was my old real estate brokerage. I'm also a licensed real estate broker. But seller financing, the seller becomes the bank. And of course, there's different ways to do seller financing. There's lease options, wraparound mortgages, also called AITDs, or all-inclusive trust deeds, mortgage wraps, second trust deed, land contract, assumable mortgage, subject to financing. So there's different ways that you can obtain, and you can use either the seller's mortgage or their equity to either CLTV, meaning combined loan to value, or loan to value the deal, so that you can create a 100% financing scenario. And there's all these creative ways to do it. And when a market goes flat, as our market probably will at some point this year, and when I talk about this, there's different types of markets. Of course, there's markets wherein Nebraska, it doesn't really go up and down and fluctuate, but California, where I am, it's going to fluctuate wildly based on the land, and the land is what causes, and of course that's based on supply and demand, better defined as affordability. The last time when we had a crash about 11 years ago, affordability was less than 10%, meaning less than 10% of people could afford to buy a home. And of course, we're pretty much there once again. So, if you want to wear your Nostradamus hat, you can play with that and try that on as you will. The point here is, with seller financing, you don't need a bank. You don't need credit. Upside down properties. Think of equity as poker chips. You don't need equity to make a deal a deal. I know guys that buy upside down properties. You buy it, sit on it. What if you had 10? What if you did this, 5 years ago, and you bought 5, 10 properties upside down using a seller finance contract? Would you have poker chips or equity today? And think about equity is just that. It's poker chips. You're only tapping the value when you refinance or sell it. So I'm not telling you to go run out and look up upside down properties, but if you had a property that's upside down, obviously you're going to have way less competition. And of course, we're getting off the actual topic, which is doing your self-funding. But the point is here that realistically, with upside down properties, that is an absolute way. There's a deal there. Last point I'm going to say on all this, and I'm actually really proud of myself. I kept this right at 30 minutes, which is fantastic. And I'm going to give you some resources and some free stuff shortly. Dodd-Frank, SAFE Act, and all other laws govern consumer transactions. So if you are doing seller financing, if you are raising capital as one of the 3 strategies I talked about by using other people's money, you are regulated by these laws. So make sure that you are compliant. 75% of compliance, and no attorney wants me to say this, is disclosure. Disclosure meaning transparent, open. If you are a broker, for instance, you're going to tell the parties involved in writing and disclose that you are a broker. If you're flipping the property, you disclose that. There's other forms, and this is where having an expert on your side can inject those forms. But disclosure is a big one. If you're trying to be secretive about something and there's a hidden gain, that's the law does not like that. So let me rephrase that again. Consumer transactions, meaning you're borrowing someone's money and investing it, meaning you're giving them a rate of return on their money, or you are using someone's property that they owner occupied, that they lived in prior to the sale, or living obviously at the time of the sale. Their primary residence, that's defined as a consumer transaction. Do not go afoul of Dodd-Frank, SAFE Act, or other laws. When I say other laws, I mean each state has their own laws, and obviously local jurisdictions. For instance, when we talked about um, uh, uh, the Airbnb, and maybe a local government doesn't allow it. So that's critically important. So here's some resources before we wrap this up. www.yourprivatemortgage.com. That gives you free real estate software, yourprivatemortgage.com. And that allows you to present your deals as discussed in item number 1, so that investors will be coming and wanting to give you money, which is the idea. And I can tell you, based on a lot of the way people ask for money on these groups, it really rubs lenders the wrong way. And if you're presenting it in a professional way that allows you to stand out, that's key. So use that software. It does it for you. It's incredible. My friend created it, Daniel Clayman. You can look him up. And I've done interviews with him and vice versa. Yourprivatemortgage.com. There's a great video I think can be massively helpful, sellerfinancehelp.com. And that is with Jim Ingersoll, who is one of the best seller finance guys out there. This is pure content. It's one of the best videos on how to find deals. Highly relevant stuff. Sellerfinancehelp.com shows you how to find seller finance deals. Item number 3 that we talked about, of the 3 different ways. YouTube, if you want more on seller financing, you can look up, as I mentioned, Seller Finance Consultants. That business is no longer active, but I left the YouTube channel up because it helps people, and I try to help when I can. Seller Finance Consultants on YouTube. You can look that up. Of course, you're on Credit Pathway right now channel. If you want some info on LLCs, which is our second category, creditpathway.com/LLC, creditpathway.com/LLC. We have a service that sets up companies for you so that they're ready to obtain funding. Stay tuned. We have 2 new events, and if this was valuable, please post something to the group, and just so that more people can be involved. Sorry for the delays. I didn't want to delay this one, so unfortunately I didn't have my tech guy. And we have one coming up on do-it-yourself credit, building credit from scratch or cleaning it from scratch. I'm really excited about that. Obviously, you can tell that's my favorite topic to talk about. And then we're going to talk with an IRA company, Quest IRA, about using a IRA for your deals, and how it leaves a ton more money on the table with respect to doing your deals safer, smarter, better. So that's all I got. If you have questions, you can connect with me. Post good stuff to the group. Don't post it here. Post it in the general category. Again, apologies for all the delays and the reschedules. Life does happen, and I'm not. This is just free content that most of these guys won't give you. That being said, good night, and we'll talk soon.